Alright, and it's on. Greetings everybody. I wanted to make this video for a long time because a number of questions and comments have been going into my channel asking me how did I get a remote developer job, and I'm going to tell you how I did it, at least in my perspective of how to land a job as best as possible. First off, I want to go over the second slide, which is things to know. First off, this is my opinion on how to land a job, and I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on how to actually obtain jobs online or remotely, or even how to become a web developer. I don't even think I'm a senior web developer, so you should take everything I say with a grain of salt, and I'm just going to tell you the things I've learned throughout the years. Within this presentation, I have simplified a lot of things. So definitely you should do your own research, because I try to give out some examples, but some of the examples are maybe like I'll give out 2 examples or 3 examples of links to certain things, and there's a vast array of other things you should look into that might give you more, make you more informed of what to do within whatever subject I'm talking about. Also, I would like to say that within research, many of the times when I did research, I just looked it through Google or YouTube, and there's probably other platforms you can look into. Another thing I want to say is this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, and it will probably take you a number of years. Yeah, it's going to take you some time, especially if you're trying to become a developer. And then you have to, the question is, just because you want to become a developer, what type of expertise are you going to be in? Which I'm going to go over later on within the slides. So it will take you a number of years, but there are ways to quicken or reduce the amount of time to actually land a developer job, but I'll speak about that also later in the slides as well. That reminds me, I need to get this on. And what's the fourth one? Though I'll be talking about web development, there are other remote careers out there. So there are people who ask me about how to get into web development, but web development is not for everybody. There's a number of other careers you can choose that might be more interesting to you as a person. Maybe if you're more artistic, you can get into graphic design, or if you're more about numbers, maybe you could become an accountant. I actually have a link to just one link to an article that was talking about several different careers that you can find remotely. But let's go to the next slide. So if you want to become a web developer, first you got to figure out what are the most popular languages in your area. So one thing is you can try to find the most popular language on the net, but if in your particular area they're only hiring people who are Java developers or .NET developers, then it makes no sense to go out to a language that's most popular but not really popular in your city, or not really popular in your town. So typical sites I would go to, for example, is like I would go to LinkedIn or whatever, and it has within LinkedIn, I suggest you actually create an account for LinkedIn. You have suggested job searches like software engineer. So we just hit software engineer, and there's tons of different types of developer roles, like a Salesforce developer, a senior .NET developer, senior software engineer, and then they will highlight certain responsibilities or skills that they want. Like here it says Python, Java, Node.js, full stack development, JavaScript, Ruby on Rails, React. Let's go to another one. Let's see here. This seems like the same one, so let me go to a different one here. It has the qualifications. Usually they will tell you the certain skills that you would need for each one, but in this one is not giving me anything specific in terms of skill sets or languages that you would need. Let me go to a different one. Okay, so it says here background in software engineering, especially C#, .NET, Python, Go, experience in AWS. I would tell you right now that many of the bigger companies would like you to know C#, Java, and if you're going to learn C#, you have to know .NET, or it's going to be Java. And if you want to learn Java, I think there's I forgot what the framework is for Java, but maybe I could find it within the search here. For me personally, the languages and frameworks that I use is JavaScript, is PHP, is MySQL, and the framework I use for JavaScript is called React. So that sort of stack is fairly uncommon, to be honest. More so, you'll find more software companies looking for .NET developers, or I'm forgetting the name here, for a JavaScript developer that does server-side language. What's that? I forgot what the framework is called, but you can look into it yourself through, like I said, Indeed, or actually we're looking at LinkedIn, or you can look at Indeed. So, you know, if you go to Indeed, just put web developer, and then you can find just the common different things. They tell you there's the salary a month. They also tell you the skill sets that's needed. Talk about HTML, JavaScript. Let me go to senior software developer. Even though it pays a lot, you probably need to know way more. It goes to React and Node.js. So basically what I would suggest is just go on to any of these like type of job board sites, type in web developer, software engineer, and try to find the common keywords that they talk about, the common languages or frameworks that they talk about, and try to pursue those. I already have a list of common frameworks and languages like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Java, C#, PHP, MySQL, Postgres, SQL, but these are not the only languages that are available within a web developer career. There's way more frameworks, way more languages, but these are the common ones that I know. There was also Python that was within some job descriptions, and even Go, but I don't really see that many software job listings that ask for the Go language, even though we did spot one. See, they also ask for Node.js, which is also getting fairly popular. But let's go into the next slide. And now the next question you have to ask yourself is what type of developer or engineer you want to be. So for HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you are basically trying to be a front-end engineer or front-end developer. And front-end developers are only going to focus on designing or developing things on the client side, meaning the things that you're viewing. But there's also such thing as a back-end web developer where they handle things on the server side. So that's things that you're receiving data and you're processing the data and possibly storing the data within a database called like MySQL or called PostgreSQL or MongoDB. There's so many different database engines and so many different server-side languages that you can use to serve or process the data. So if I go back to the previous slide, you already see a couple of them like PHP, which is specifically a server-side language. But C# can be used in so many different ways. It could be used as a desktop language. It could be used, I think you can use C# as for mobile development, and you can use it as a server-side language as well, but with a framework called, I forgot what the framework is called, but there is so many different ways you can use it, and there's so many different developer roles or positions you can be. Like you can just be a web developer or a mobile developer, and then within that there's different frameworks and languages you can use. Or you want to be a desktop developer, just creating desktop apps. Like if you you know, within a typical desktop app, you see all these apps right here. These are created in some type of language. So you can either go for that, so, and you could be full front end, where it's more so design heavy, back end, which is processing data, and full stack, where you're just a combination of both. If I click on one of these links here, I see that there is web designer, front-end developer, UX and UI designer, which is developing the mock-up or how the visuals of the website is going to be. So there's so many different ways you can go about this. Let's go to the next slide. So once you find out what language you're going to get and you find out what type of developer you want to be, then you have to find resources, free resources, or you can get paid resources to use these languages or frameworks. So the common platform I use to get just free information is YouTube and Google. And to understand more of how to use the language, I use this form called Stack Overflow. There's probably other platforms to use like Reddit. I have never used TikTok, but I'm pretty sure there's probably some information on TikTok about how to use certain languages. And then there's paid like platforms like Udemy, and let's go here. Lynda, it was originally called lynda.com, but now it's called LinkedIn Learning. And you can get some type of subscription service where you can watch content of how to do certain things or just learn about languages. And not only languages, but other things outside of just web development. I know they also have things that have to do with like marketing and just plenty of other different courses. And that's also true with Udemy as well. Like it talks about finance, accounting, IT and software, office productivity, blah, blah, blah. So free services, if you're broke like I used to be, free services is a must, but paid services also are good as well. So if you decide if you want to go, now here's the thing. If you can decide if you want to go to school, go to a boot camp, or become a self-taught developer. So for schooling, the average schooling ranges in terms of tuition. It said within this article right here that the average tuition is $35,551 per student per year, which includes books, supplies, and daily living expenses. It might be more in certain colleges or universities that are closer to you, or maybe even less. But that is one way you can get a good education on how to become a web developer or software engineer. I do feel like there are pros, even though this is like the most expensive route, there are pros to this. And one of the pros is that people, if you have a degree in computer science, people do look at your resume as more impressive compared to people who don't have any degrees concerning computer science. So that's that really one positive plus. And there's also other resources going to college, like I do believe you have the ability to do internships through college and universities that are not really that available if you decide to do it the cheapest route. Second one is boot camp, and I looked into the pricing of that, and they say that the pricing is around $12,000 to $15,000. Now I have seen that there are some boot camps that are probably significantly lesser than that. I have seen some that are like 5,000, some even 3,000, but boot camps cost money. They cost in the thousands, even if it's not tens of thousands. It does cost like 3,000 to 5,000. Now, there is this one program I was about to get into before I landed a job, and it was called Reviture. And basically what Reviture does, it sends you to a boot camp, right? For I don't know how long. I think it takes like a couple of months to complete this boot camp. And once you pass the boot camp, they immediately send you to a company where you're under contract to work for them for like 2 years. And after you work for them for 2 years, then you can continue to work for that company, or you can go off and do whatever you want. So with Reviture, there is like some programs where if you don't have the money to do it, they will allow you to work. They will pay you technically, but it's minimum wage. They will pay you in this boot camp to work there for a couple of months. And then if you complete the program, they're going to send you off to work for some company, and you have to work under that contract for 2 years. Now, there are a lot of pros and cons to that. I heard there's a lot of mixed feelings about Reviture, which is the reason why I was like hesitant to actually get into it. So another thing, a downside to Reviture or programs like Reviture is if you fail the boot camp, you owe the company like tens of thousands of dollars. And there's another actual boot camp I want to talk about that used to be called Lambda School, but now it's called Bloom's Institute of Technology, where it is a boot camp, but they allow you to, they have options where you can do it for part-time or full-time. And when you finally finish boot camp, you have to pay for the service out your salary. So they will allow you to work for free. However, I think you're under some type of contract, or you have to sign something where it states that after you receive or land your job, they're going to deduct X amount of money out of your paycheck to pay for the whole boot camp. I do think there is pros to boot camping, because with boot camps, you do have the ability, they usually have connections with companies or businesses that need some developers. So if you do complete the boot camp, you might have a faster time getting a job. And the last idea is self-taught, which costs $0 sort of. But the thing about it is you don't really have connections, and you're not guided by anyone. You are just finding information out like sporadically. You know, you don't have a mentor or a teacher. You are your own teacher. If you need to find stuff, you have to just figure out through just Google searching, and you know, there's not really an outline or someone guiding you of how to do it or what you should learn properly. So that might be the downside, and there's probably other downsides to it too. But let's continue. Okay, next point. You should dedicate time each day practicing and learning the language, at least an hour. Yeah, you should at least try to learn an hour a day, and that's minimum, an hour a day. I would say a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours at max. You know, when I won't say at most, I'd say 3 hours or so. The more you put into it, the faster you'll have a chance to land a job, or at least, yeah, you'll land a job. Here are some points I wanted to cover. It might be overwhelming if you never coded before, so take your time. Yeah, so I've been coding on and off for like 10 plus years, so I don't recall how hard it is to code, or like the typical pitfalls or frustrations. Well, you know what? That's not true. Even for coding for so many years, there's still frustrations for coding, because there are certain things that you feel like should work. But then when you try to run it, it fails, and you don't know why it fails. So there is, like, to be honest, like even 10 plus years after still coding, there's still tons of times where I just get stuck, or I feel frustrated because I'm stuck. So you should take your time. You should just, you know, understand that coding is one of those types of frustrating languages. It's not always frustrating, but there's times where you will be frustrated, and you should not I don't want to say overwhelm yourself. You shouldn't put yourself down if you don't understand just the basic concepts. Let's go to the next point. You should have a decent computer if you're planning to become a web developer. Yes, you don't have to have the most advanced computer, but it has to be decent enough. It can't be, you can't do it on your phone. You shouldn't be able to do it on your tablet. You should have like at least a laptop. At least a laptop or a desktop to sit down and code. I mean, I feel like that's something that I shouldn't really explain, but I know a lot of people don't even have computers, still thinking that they want to become web developers, and I think that's sort of weird. Another point, you should get a GitHub account in order to save your projects to a repository. So GitHub is a version control software. I have a link where it talks about more about what GitHub is. If I have to explain it, it's sort of like, it's like a website that saves your projects, your web apps, into these containers called repositories. So let's say you did some code on one computer and you saved it into this GitHub account. If you go into another location with another computer, and you have your GitHub account, you can retrieve your manager or web application or your code and put it inside this other computer where you can work on it. So it's this access to be able to get any type of web project or web app, and not only that, retrieve it from whatever location, but save or commit information, code that updates the web app in itself, and also have the ability to go back if you need to a different version of time where the code had only this amount of code. It just controls, It controls the ability of how you want to update the code within the project. And that is really essential. This is something I'm using even in my, within my work period. We use GitHub, and I think plenty of people use GitHub or something similar to GitHub. Next point is develop a number of personal projects that will impress employees. So definitely try to make personal projects to show off that you know how to use the language or framework. Because if you just say that you're a web developer and you have really fancy, resume or whatever, it doesn't mean anything if they can't see how well you can code, how well of a developer you can make these different projects. Do something that looks very professional, and do something that definitely is going to make the employer feel like this is impressive. It can't just be some bare bones thing. It has to feel like this was professionally made. Also, if you're going for a specific type of a language, like let's say you're going to become a React developer, make sure you just create lots of React developer personal projects. If you're going to just try to become a Python developer, make sure all your personal projects are developed in Python and you're doing something impressive with Python. Like I don't know, like building some type of social media app or something like that, which is actually really, that's probably very too big for a personal project, but at the same time, it will be impressive if you're able to accomplish that. Next point, have a portfolio website that will showcase the number of projects you've made. So yes, you should, so with the personal project that you have, you should be able to host them on a website and then have a portfolio website where you are hosting just the different personal projects that the employer can actually look into and see, okay, oh, this is his project at this, and this is his project where he did that. And you can see the different skills or languages that you use to develop this project. I've listed a different number of platforms like Heroku. I know Heroku used to be free, but now I think it's that free trial is going away. Like you can, I believe with Heroku, you had the ability to develop or deploy a project as long as it wasn't, as long as it was like fairly small. But I think that opportunity is going away. I'm not absolutely sure. I haven't researched it well enough. Another platform that you can host is DigitalOcean. This is actually one I'm hosting some of my projects on. Matter of fact, I will show you my personal portfolio website. I have only checked it out. Like the last time I did my personal projects was like in 2020. That's the last time I even updated the code. So that's 2 years ago. And these are just like personal. I don't even know if this site will work. Let me see. Let's see if the site, oh, the site does work. Okay, it's still here. That's great. This is a personal portfolio website or personal project I worked on that was created with React and PHP. And then there's CLife, which was created in Node.js or in Angular. I don't know if this works. Let's see if it works. It still works. Holy crap, it still works. Okay, this is another personal project I worked on. So this is just a small example of having a portfolio website that any employer should be able to see, because it's important if you don't have any experience to show, hey, I know how to code, right? And here's the others like AWS and GoDaddy. Okay, so once you have enough personal projects and a portfolio website set up, now it's time to apply to jobs. And I say you should at least apply to 5 jobs a week. So obviously you should create a resume, right? Let me go to some points that I want to actually hit. So try to apply to jobs that have been posted within 1 day or a couple hours. So there's so many different job boards you can go to. Again, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to Indeed.com, you can go to Monster.com, you can go to Career Builder, you can go to Glassdoor.com. There's so many different job boards out there. But the thing I do want to say is, if you do see a job posting, because you can do job alerts within many of those popular websites, you can receive a job alert that will update some type of information, tell you that, oh, this web developer job is open, has been posted within a week or a couple of days. So you get these alerts. That's actually should have been a point I made. and you should try to apply within that job, apply those jobs that have been posted, that at least been posted for a couple of hours or a day. Because when it happens to be like you're posting 3 days ago, posting a job that had been posted 3 days ago or a week ago, usually at that time there's already like hundreds of people that applied for it. So applying early is going to increase the likelihood that you get a response back. The second point I wanted to make is going to lesser known job boards and sites will have less competition. So if you have less competition, there'll be less people applying, and therefore you have a higher rate of people actually, or employers actually seeing your resume. So ZipRecruiter, I actually showed ZipRecruiter. I think ZipRecruiter is not the most well-known site compared to LinkedIn, compared to Indeed.com. So you should try to get to more obscure websites that will give you less competition. Therefore, maybe you have a better chance at landing a job, or at least getting an interview, right? Learn about ATS, applicant tracking system, and how to improve your chances of your resume to pass screening. This is also good information to know. Let's get ATS. ATS, I believe, is just like this software that scans your resume and tries to track if there's like keywords or phrases that align with the job posting, and then they will order which job or which resume has the most accurate, or I guess better position for this based on the job summary that was posted by the employer. This website will give you some more information about ATS, and I think it's really important to know about ATS because it's not only just web developer jobs, it's just every job. Every job posting has some type of ATS, applicant tracking software, to just sift through what are the better candidates. So you should also learn about AWS and use like software that will use or analyze your resume to determine if your resume is up to par compared to what the job posting is. There is a Google Chrome tool called Job Analytics, or Jobalytics, where it's a resume keyword analyzer. So basically what it does is, I guess you can just like post, or you can go to a website and then upload your resume, and it will compare the job posting information to your resume, and it will give you a score on how accurate or how identical the job posting is to your resume. And the higher it is, the more likely the ATS is going to perceive it as a high chance, and then increase the likelihood that your resume will be at the highest or the top of the list. So I think that's a good add-on to have. Here's another point. If you don't have any experience, put your personal projects inside the resume along with the different tech you used. Yes, that's important. If you're starting out, definitely just put your personal projects, if you don't have any experience whatsoever, and list out the tech, like what type of language you use. Did you use PHP? Did you use .NET? Did you use React? Did you use Angular? Make sure you put that information. And also I would say that you should put your information in readable ordered lists or unordered lists, so it just be a lot easier to scan, because there's also recruiters that look into your resume as well. Cover letters don't hurt. That's also another thing I wanted to say. Cover letters don't hurt. So if you just put a resume and they also ask for a cover letter, I feel like you should always put a cover letter. And also, if you get into an interview, you should understand the typical techniques of PAR or STAR, which are both behavioral techniques. PAR and STAR are pretty much the same. It's problem, action, result. They'll ask you a question. You will talk about the problem. Then you'll talk about the action, or what specific skills you did to address the problem. And then you talk about the result of it. So I'm trying to think of an example to use. Like, let me try to think of a common thing someone asks with an interview. They'll say something like what was a difficult task you had to do while working in your previous job, and what did you do to resolve it? So I would say like one difficult task I had to do in my previous job was to create a feature that was able to track the amount of hours a user had when opening up this application. And I would talk about, why it was hard. I'll say like, it was very difficult because I had to use React to send information back to the server in order to collect and update the user's time. But the way I resolved it was I looked through documentation on how to use a certain framework or library properly to update and track the time of how long a user has been using a certain web page or a certain account or blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? I tried to do it on the spot, but that's pretty much the part. I have links to that as well. Next slide. In some job interviews, they might quiz you on certain subjects. So I've been on certain jobs or where they want you to complete certain quizzes or I guess tests, whatever. And some of these tests involve data structures and algorithms. So they want you to use sometimes they want you to use a certain language. Sometimes they don't care what language you use. And it would be these like weird quiz-like questions where you have to solve it just through the language itself to give out a specific answer. And then within that, the best sources to use to practice that is LeetCode and Code Wars. There's probably some other, obviously some other websites that might be suitable or just as good, but LeetCode and Code Wars is some of the things I use. Another quiz might be like you have to use a certain framework to solve a problem or just the language itself. So I had some job quizzes or some framework quizzes where I had to use React in order to show that I know how to use a certain language. Another type of quiz might be them just asking questions within the job, within the interview of different fundamentals of the language or framework or the concept of it. Like they'll ask me, what do I know about, I'm trying to think of something. I can't really think of something at this moment, but they'll ask you just like fundamental questions about how to use React or JavaScript or how to write MySQL in a certain way if you have to query certain information. Sometimes it's some stuff like that, and also there's take-home tests where they want you to build out a certain project where they have different criteria of what you need to do, and they want you to build this out while using a certain language or framework. And those types of tests are really annoying because these are the ones that might take a couple of days to maybe even a week to accomplish. So be wary about that. Now, I went through all the things of the slide that I think would be helpful, and here are some extra things I feel like might be helpful as well. Within the resume, you have to list experience, and I feel like there is an experience hierarchy. I feel that when employers see experience, they take certain experience more serious than others. So I feel like company experience beats business experience and business experience beats freelance experience. Freelance experience beats internship experience. Internship experience beats pro bono experience, and pro bono experience beats personal projects. So company experience are these companies that might have 100 or plus people. Those are going to be viewed highly, way better, especially if it's a Fortune 500 company or really popular companies like that everybody knows, like Google or Facebook or something like that. But even if it's not Google or Facebook, company experience will always be personal projects, right? But business experiences, whether they be mid-size or just small, will always be freelance experiences where just like independent contract work from different clients. So that's just something you should know. I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm just saying from my experience, right? Here's another slide or extra information I think might be helpful that will increase your chances of landing a job quicker. So having a college degree in computer science, I feel will land you a job quicker. I've seen plenty of other videos from other people who say, you don't need a college degree to get a job. And that's technically true. However, people who have computer science degrees, they are still looked at as more qualified to the job compared to just self-taught developers. I strongly feel that self-taught developers are going to have a harder time compared to people who have computer science degrees, and especially if you're computer science, if you have a master's in computer science or doctorates in computer science, you're going to be looked as a more qualified candidate than someone who's just someone who doesn't have any college education that's related to IT or tech. Getting a degree in a prestigious university will also help you. So anything like if you get something in MIT, you got a computer science degree in MIT, wow, that's going to be very impressive. Having friends or connections that are already in the industry to refer to you for a job opening, aka networking, getting people who are already in web development or software engineering. If you already know someone in software engineering and you can ask them if there's any openings, that will land you a job a lot faster than if you just did it by yourself and you don't have any friends or connections to do it with. Having work experiences through internships. Yeah, so internships. Some internships are paid experiences, but many internships are free. They don't want a lot of the people who are going to offer internships are cheap bastards, and they don't want to actually they don't actually want to pay for your services or your work that you put in. Even if you're doing very minute or simple things, you still should get paid. But nonetheless, internships is way better experience as opposed to just having personal projects, because now you have experience working with whether it's a business or just working in a web development team, and that's something. Also, things that will help is having certifications. So having a certification in AWS or Azure, which are like some platforms that many people deploy their websites to. Docker, which is a containerized, I don't know if it's a containerized web app. It's not a web app, but it's like it contains like certain I guess like certain languages. I don't know how the best way to explain it, but Docker is used in a lot of big companies. So having certification of that will be impressive. And there's also other Google career certifications that might help you that I wanted to show a little bit about. So there are certifications in IT support, project management, data analytics. Having certifications don't hurt. It shows in the very least that you're dedicated into learning things. So getting certifications will definitely improve, at least for me, I think it will improve the likelihood that you'll land a job. And obviously, certifications is going to cost money, so you should make note of that. Last thing I wanted to say is, though a lot of people have asked me about getting remote jobs as a web developer, there's plenty of other jobs that are out there, careers that are out there that might land you, that might be suitable for you based on what you like to do. You don't have to become a web developer, especially if you're not interested in coding in general. So I just went to this one Indeed had an article about remote jobs to consider in 2022, and just looking through just a number of them, I see like a graphic designer or a tutor, freelance writer if you like to write. These might be inspiring or something that might be up your alley for other people who are not really into the idea of just coding just specific web apps or even desktop apps or whatever applications, accounting, digital marketing, Like there's a number of different job opportunities that might be way more suitable to your interests. They have a registered nurse as one remote opportunity. I didn't know registered nurses can become remote, but that's interesting. So, and software engineer. So there's a number of different other job opportunities. You got to do your own research again. I spent like 40 minutes explaining all this crap, but yeah, I wanted to condense it, but at the same time also lay out some information that might be helpful to you. I don't know if it has been that helpful. I don't know if there's going to be people who watch it all the way toward the end, but hopefully you can land a job that's remote. And yeah, other than that, guys, have a good day or night, and yeah, see you later.